Mr. Antonio,
Here.
Mr. Badger,
Here.
Mr. Bleefeld,
Here.
Ms. Kiavachi, Mr. Golson,
Here.
Ms. Karionikis,
Here.
Dr. Morris, here, Mr. Walker,
Here.
Mrs. Ginsburg, here. We have a student rep. Isabel DaCosta.
Here.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm gonna have some students come up and help me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Very nice and loud, guys. Thank you. It was. All right. So first, I'd like to welcome everyone to this March 31st meeting of the Wissahickon School Board. If you take a look at our agenda, you'll see a list of our prior meetings. February 24th, we had a work session. March 3rd, a regular public board meeting. March 10th was a finance committee meeting. March 17th was REAP. And today we had our communications committee prior to this meeting. And then we listed our upcoming meetings. April 7th will be a regular public board meeting. April 21st, we'll have both health, wellness, and safety and REAP. April 28th will be a work session, and May 5th, a regular public board meeting. All right, so we're going to move first to Wissahickon High School monthly highlights.
Yeah, so a cool highlight we had for the juniors, we had the financial fair. That was really awesome since it was all mandatory for them and it was randomized. So a lot of the juniors received the paper and they would get, like, say, an income of 50,000 like a month, or maybe like 60,000 a month. But then like you have your net income, which could vary from like 3,000 a month or 5,000 a month. And they basically had to go to all these stations, housing, pets, food. And it was like really cool and like eye-opening because a lot of the people wanted to buy their own house, but a lot of them ended up living with their parents because it was much cheaper in the end. So, and then the freshmen, they also had this career expo that was marvelously set up by Miss Sterling. And then after school was open to the sophomores, juniors, and the seniors, which was pretty cool. The track team is having their first track team meet tomorrow at school, right after school is at home against Quakertown, so we're excited about that. And then a cool thing is that Minithon had one of their events on March 1st, and they had like a lot of these St. Patrick's related day events, and all of the money raised went towards, you know, helping to find the cure for childhood cancer. And then another neat thing is that the robotics team, we've won our competitions twice in a row, which is really neat. And we're having our district competition this Thursday and Friday and Saturday too. It's a 3-day competition. Very excited about that. I have been nominated and selected for Dean's List semifinalist at Hatboro Horsham competition. So I'll be interviewed again for that at the district competition. And fingers crossed I win, because if I do, I'll go on to the World Championship, which will be really neat. So, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, hopefully the team, we're looking for a huge win and like a whole bunch of district points, which are won through awards, so we can go to the world competition and represent, you know, WIS at the world stage there in Houston, Texas.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Isabel. And thank you for all of those highlights. And I heard Minithon, they're hosting something this Friday for the middle school students also, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
Like a spring dance. So wonderful. Any other comments or questions?
So I have one quick comment. This is my 3rd year of volunteering at the Reality Fair, which is that first thing that Isabel mentioned. And I love this exercise. And I do think it's eye-opening how many of them come back around and they're like, I gotta live with my parents. It is a really nice exercise and it's really nice to see like, you know, them understanding the finances and what they have to budget for. So got to see a lot of my favorites, a lot of my juniors that I love so much. So it was fun to do it again.
I just want to make a quick comment that the state championship for swimming happened 2 weeks ago. Nora Weber, who's a senior at Wissahickon High School, won the 500 freestyle. She also won last year, so she became Wissahickons first two-time state champion in swimming. So I thought that was pretty cool. So congratulations to Nora.
Yeah, congratulations, Nora. That's awesome. Anyone else have any comments? Questions? All right, well, then we'll move on to our second presentation. Thank you, Isabel, for that report. Now we'll move on to our second presentation, Shady Grove Elementary.
Sure, thank you. This is the sixth of six school presentations. Dr. Bianco would tell us that we were saving the best for last. I'm not allowed to say that, but I'm not going to dispute it either. So it's with great pleasure to introduce the principal of Shady Grove, Dr. Jason Bianco.
Thank you for having us and for picking us last, no pressure. But as you may know, this year at the Wissahickon School District, we've been implementing positive behavior intervention supports for PBIS. And through that, we've done a lot of teaching, a lot of lessons, a lot of modeling for our students, a lot of positive behavior in reinforcement using Bulldog Bucks. We do monthly raffles. But as we were going through the process of initiating all these different ideas, one of the pieces that we felt was important was to include student voice and have a student leadership aspect. So tonight I have Mrs. Jennifer Kennedy, my assistant principal here, as well as our PBIS ambassadors. And really the idea of the PBIS ambassadors came about as we have so many amazing students here. These are 11 of them behind me. And we really wanted to find a way for them to shine and be models for all of our kids at Shady Grove. So Mrs. Kennedy has been working very diligently with this group of students. So tonight they're going to tell you a little bit about how they became PBI ambassadors, the process they went through, and some of the things that they are doing at Shady Grove this year. So I'm going to introduce Mrs. Kennedy and our ambassadors. Ambassadors, the process they went through, and some of the things that they are doing at Shady Grove this year. So I'm going to introduce Mrs. Kennedy and our ambassadors. Ambassadors, the process they went through, and some of the things that they are doing at Shady Grove this year. So I'm going to introduce Mrs. Kennedy and our ambassadors. Ambassadors, the process they went through, and some of the things that they are doing at Shady Grove this year. So I'm going to introduce Mrs. Kennedy and our ambassadors. How about that weather? Please come up.
All right, I think we're good now. So you all excited for spring break? 2 weeks away? Yeah? Or you don't want to leave school, you just want to stay? Now you want to go away? Are you liking the warm weather we're having? Yeah?
Thank you for your patience. Today you have in front of you beautiful, wonderful, brilliant student ambassadors. They lead with dignity. That is our motto. And so I'm just super excited to be before you to give you a little bit of just information about all of the contributions that they make at Shady Grove each and every day. Both Jason and I value the importance of student leadership. We recognize that student agency matters. We recognize that student voice matters. John Quincy Adams suggested that if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. And so we knew that we needed to be intentional about opportunities and access for leadership at Shady Grove. And what was born of that was agency in action. Today, I'll be very brief, and we will talk a little bit about calling all fifth graders, which is a little bit about our process, how these wonderful students were selected. You will actually meet the leaders. So some of them couldn't be here today. So we captured their voices in a video, very short video. And then I will talk to you a little bit about their roles and responsibilities with our overall motto, which is building a community of us. Calling all fifth graders. So they learned that hard work pays off. It was a very rigorous process. I went to each fifth grade class in November. I went with very much intentional wishes to excite students about this opportunity. I went to make sure that they understood that it was for everyone. And I also wanted to make sure that they knew that they had support. There were 4 requirements that each of these students had to decide which 2 of the 4 they would like to present as part of their requirements, as part of their application process. One of them was a resume or a one-pager. You can see that in front of you. For the board members and members here, that's what's in your folder. You can reference that at your leisure. These are just ways to capture the students' leadership skills, their achievements. Much like a resume, they captured their leadership abilities. We also had the students be able to choose from a student recommendation. Nothing says you're a leader when your peer takes time to write about you and celebrate your achievements. So that was also something that they could choose from. We also asked for an essay just representing their leadership abilities. And then there was another essay that students could choose from where they were asked to actually choose someone who inspired them, that was a different cultural background than them, and really think about the leadership qualities that that individual had that also they exemplified. And these students absolutely met the task, and they were selected very honorably to be our PBIS student ambassadors. Let's hear from the ambassadors. What did you select to complete as part of the application process and why? Eleanor?
I selected the one pager so that they could really get to know me and what I do. I also selected the so that they could see what other people thought about me and my passion.
Thank you. And Chloe? And what did you learn about yourself, the process, this application process?
I learned that I can push through hard things and manage my time.
And take it.
I knew that I did well, but when I was writing and creating, I noticed that what expectations I was achieving, and it showed me that I was more than enough.
This is our section where you're going to meet the leaders. So it's a short video just referencing the students' mottos and their names.
My name is Eleanor Yee, and my motto is we're all in this together. Hi, my name is Keely. My motto is mistakes are proof that you're trying. Hi, my name is Rowan, and my motto is honesty is the best policy. My name is Claire, and my motto is do a good turn daily. Hi, my name is Joanna, and my motto is don't let obstacles block you away from success. My name is Charlie, and my motto is when you have the choice to be right or be kind, choose kind. Hi, my name is Tegan, and my motto is everything happens for a reason.
Hi, I'm Piper, and I believe that all our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them.
Hi, my name is Lauren, and my motto is you don't know if you like it until you try it. Hi, my name is Chloe, and my motto is don't knock until you try it. Hi, my name is Gwen, and my motto is ad astra per aspera. This means to the stars through hard work. My name is Liliana, and I believe that you can do anything you set your mind to. Hi, my name is Abby, and my motto is I believe that we can turn obstacles into opportunities.
My name is Kira, and I believe that attitude is everything.
And the mottos were really important to us because it is our way of holding ourselves accountable as individuals, but also collectively holding one another accountable because they know each other's dreams. The next step will be building a community of upstanders. I really thought about the best way to share their roles and responsibilities was to really highlight who these students are. Our PBIS ambassadors are noble. Through acts of kindness and positive actions, they actually foster a culture of kindness in our school. They model and spread kindness. This is an image of them in front of their very own creation of our kindness heart that they created, they dreamt up, they put up, they're still putting up principles down daily. And they really wanted to share and spread kindness throughout our school. So this is just one of their initiatives that have been successful in thinking about ways that they spread kindness in our building. Let's hear from the ambassadors again. Please share some of the kindness initiatives that you have been part of as a PBIS ambassador.
We created a kindness. Things we can do to be kind.
We also hand out envelopes that have inspired quotes and words in them, such as "You got this" or "You are amazing." We do this to make people. Kindness initiatives. It's the kindness for you see. It is both inspiring quotes and random acts of kindness. It's easy to be kind.
PBIS ambassadors lead with dignity. Our PBIS ambassadors are noble. Our PBIS ambassadors are role models. Through relationship building, they are also mentors. Here is an example of your left, on the left of a picture of Joanna giving out one of those just check-in cards to just make sure somebody's having a good day, to inspire and encourage. And on the right, you see Gwen kind of just hanging out with a first grade friend in the cafeteria, just enjoying time together and getting to know somebody that they might not have known before. What are some of the ways that you have provided mentorship to others, Lauren?
I was a mentor to a second grader, and I would go into her class every Tuesday and Thursday morning to check on how she's feeling that day and how I can make her day better if she's happy. And also something that's really important, being a mentor, is getting close and becoming friends with the kid that you're being a mentor to so they can open up. Every week, we go around the school for about 10 minutes and we congratulate the students for being safe, respectful, and responsible.
Our PBIS ambassadors lead with dignity. Our PBIS ambassadors are noble. Our PBIS ambassadors are role models. And our PBIS ambassadors are collaborative and communicators. It is this team that you see before you that creates, revises, and edits our parent PBIS newsletter. There is a copy in the folder that you have. Fresh off the presses is our April Bulldog Buzz. It is our communication to our Shady Grove caregivers. It's our way of keeping them up to date with all the wonderful happenings related to all of our PBIS efforts. Please share some of the cool things that you've included in our newsletter. Charlotte?
There's the newsletter function part of the book. The third night is what Kevin took that she thought had a positive thing.
And Piper.
Another thing that we saw was the juice box. Miss Kennedy would visit the free class during the juice box.
Our PBIS ambassadors lead with dignity. They are noble, they are role models, they are collaborators and communicators, and they are also change agents. So our team works together to promote what it means to be safe, to be respectful, and to be responsible. I don't know if you can see clearly, but their shirts on the front are a message to them. It says, I am enough. It's just a way to encourage their student agency, their student voice, reminding them that their leadership matters. And on the back is a very important message. So they send leadership, they send kindness, they send these beautiful gifts and talents in big ways and even very subtle ways by just wearing their t-shirt. So the back of their shirt says, dear person behind me, Shady Grove is a better place to be because of you. You belong here. You will do great things here. We will support each other. Love, your friendly PBIS student ambassador. What is your goal as a change agent in our school? Tell us about your contributions to improve student behavior on our school buses and in our cafeteria.
Stars are the cafeteria, and they are part of the behavior system. Classes will be like on a star. But if the class isn't, they don't understand the star. If you can ever start by doing the following: using talking voices, staying in their seats, and meaning the pairs. If they earn 5 stars and 1 earn a ticket, earn 3 tickets, earn seats on like side for recess. And take it. In the near future, we are going to demonstrate how to behave on the bus to refresh the kindergartners to the top football 5th graders' brains. This is just a small way to restate common bus rules across the Shady Grove.
So as you can see, our PBIS ambassadors are noble. They are role models, they are collaborators, they are communicators, they are change agents. And in this picture, they're standing very proudly behind our pillars in our community, in our hallway, because they are pillars of our community. If we want to give our thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to talk how we support students in our school.
empowering and helping us to just celebrate these wonderful student leaders that you see today. Thank you.
That is so sweet. Thank you so much for this card. I really did enjoy your presentation. And I actually have been jotting down some questions for you. So I was wondering, those mottos you had were wonderful. How did anybody want to share how they came up with their motto? Like what that process was like for you to come up with it?
What I say to myself when I feel like I'm down or like I feel like I can't do something. And that was what my motto was.
Great. Anyone else? Well, I thought that was a really good response though. Thank you. And then that heart image you have, you said you put like special messages up there and things you can do kind for other people. Like what are some examples of those messages?
Some examples of those messages would be like if someone's having a bad day, they could go up to the kindness heart and they would read one of the positive sticky notes. Like for example, it would say, "You're awesome. Help a teacher clean up supplies. Follow instructions." And next to it is like the instructions on what to do. And it's like once you read a sticky note, pass the message on and like, tell other people to like read the sticky notes at the kindness heart.
That's great. And did you guys come up with the different sticky notes, like what you were going to put on them?
So we looked up different ideas and on our computers, and some people were hanging it up, some people were doing tape, but most people were tracing, erasing, and writing all the sticky notes.
Wow, there's a ton of those. That's like just a ton of positivity. So I love that. So thank you for sharing that with your community. And the upstander agreement. Did you guys write that? Or how did you come up with the upstander agreement?
Class after the juice box, we like the class had to come up with like 10 like things that should be in the pledge, and then Mrs. Kennedy combined it to a large sheet.
And what sort of things are in that pledge?
To like respect others, to stand up for others, something.
That's great. Awesome. And I love the star system for the cafeteria. I think that's great because it can get really loud and rowdy in the cafeteria. So I love that. And the kindergartners. So what type of things, I think Tegan, you were talking about the kindergartners. What kind of things are you planning to teach the kindergartners about the bus?
We're planning to teach the kindergartners on how to sit quiet and just normal like moral bus on it, because they were in preschool and their parents probably come up. They haven't been on a bus before and they need to learn all the simple. And this is just an easy way to teach them.
That's great. Well, I'm so glad all of you volunteered to do this position. That's awesome. And you're all in 5th grade?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I have a 5th grader also, and so does Deanne. I think Deanne has some comments too. I thought you were raising your hand.
This was wonderful, and what a cool idea for the school. And I can tell you guys are all amazing leaders at Shady Grove. So thank you for being those leaders. Really exciting. And great job.
I want to echo what a great job you guys did, but what I especially loved was how you cheered each other on and encouraged each other throughout each other's presentation, because that's what great leaders do. So I love that. I love that. Exciting stuff. You're going to be, the middle school is going to have some great leaders. So thank you for this presentation.
Anyone else? Comments or questions? All right, well, thank you again. And it's our tradition to do a picture. So I'm hoping you won't mind a picture with us.
Have another round of applause for Shady Grove.
Everyone is certainly welcome to stay. It won't be as exciting as this, but you're certainly welcome. If not, if you want to leave, please take cookies and other treats with you on your way out. Everyone wants the cookies. All right, so we're now at the first public comment period. And the board appreciates hearing from the community. A maximum of 5 speakers will be heard on the same topic. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes in the interest of fairness and in order to treat all speakers equally. It's not the board's practice to engage in dialogue with speakers. When appropriate, we will follow up with responses on board docs. And if you're in person, when you approach, please state your name and your affiliation with the district. And same if you're virtual. All right, so we only have 1 person registered in person, and that's Carmina Taylor. You may approach.
Am I being recorded? Because I want to make sure my voice doesn't get muted. So since you're at the first reading of the policies, I want to ask a question about policy 249.1. Why is the language shift from the Safe Schools Report to the School Safety and Security Incident Report? And there's references to the Safe School Act. So I just think it's important for people to understand why the shift has occurred to this new language. Then there's a mention about the annual report for this safety and security incident report. It doesn't specify annually when that occurs. I think it would be very good for parents and stakeholders to know what time of the year this report will be sent or presented to the community. And the third question I have is, who is the Title IX coordinator? I think I covered it all. So I hope, Marshall, you'll explain why these things are occurring. I noticed that also there's a lot of corrections in green in terms of the pregnancy and the married student policy. So as I have been working with some parents in the district, I always want you guys to think about people that have not been engaged with the school board proceedings. And I think that the sooner you can make it more digestible and understandable and clear, the more that they can work with you as your partners to understand why the changes are being made, what's the historical context of it. And again, I just would like to know why the shift from the School Safety Act to the Safe Schools Report to the new School Safety and Security Incident Report. I've been coming here for years and I didn't even know. So if I don't know, I'm sure other parents don't know. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Carmina. Is there anyone registered online?
There are no hands raised online.
All right, then we'll close the public comment period. And we'll look then to, board president report is next. And we're going to be approving next week the dates for the 25-26 school year. So you'll see all the dates of our meetings listed here. Are there any comments or questions regarding those dates? No? All right, then we'll move on to superintendent report. Jim?
Thank you. 2 informational items. The first is an update for everybody on our boys ultimate Frisbee team. As you know, it's a club sport at the high school. And earlier this month, some information came out on the team in terms of how it's doing. Its ranking was publicized, and turns out that the ultimate Frisbee team is #1, which is nice. #1, but not in the county, and also not in the state, and not in the region either, but #1 in the entire United States of America. That is our boys ultimate Frisbee team ranked #1 across the entire 50 states, which is an incredible accomplishment. Now, something has come out more recently where they ran into some competition and now they're in top 10 status and they have a very big event coming up. But This, as you all know, this is one of my favorite activities because they're so motivated. We have people coming back after they graduate to help train and help coach. So this is an incredible accomplishment for the Ultimate Frisbee team. The second item I have is not quite as exciting as that, but it's on those lines. It's district goals and ongoing priorities update, this is number 2 of 3 over the course of the year. Dr. Dewan and I will take turns updating the various goals. They're listed there, and we've gone over these before in this forum. The first goal was to fill key staffing vacancies in district leadership positions, and this is the year 2 of 2. So as everybody knows, we've done that in almost full measure. We have Dr. Dewan, incoming superintendent. We have Dr. Gardner, incoming assistant superintendent. As it turns out, we also have a existing vacancy at the middle school principal, which is in progress now. So by update number 3 in June, to have that one filled as well. Any questions on number 1? Dr. Dewan, I know you're online. You want to take number 2?
Yes, our update as we come to the end of year 1 for positive behavior interventions and support implementation in our schools. We are continuing to make very strong progress. Most recently, since our last update on this goal, our elementary schools each had fidelity walkthroughs with our MCIU partners. That's the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. We partnered with them for leadership and support in the process of PBIS implementation or installation. And so with those fidelity walkthroughs at our elementary schools, each of the elementary schools received feedback from the MCIU, which has been helpful to help them design action plans for moving forward. Our secondary schools will traditionally participate in fidelity walkthroughs in year 2 of implementation, and so they'll have the fidelity walkthroughs next year, and that's aligned with the model of implementation for PBIS. In April, there's going to be a series of meetings that will focus on what's called benchmarks of quality, or BOQs. And that'll be in all 6 of our schools. And the goal of that process is to help our leaders and the leadership teams in each of our schools assess their progress and refine action plans for their schools as they look back at this year and look ahead toward next year. In the second week of April, members of the PBIS core teams from each school will gather together here at Central Office to work with Ms. Latour and again, our MCIU partners. And they'll share progress with one another. They'll discuss their next steps and they'll continue with their ongoing collaboration. This will be the third meeting of the year where those PBIS core teams from each of our schools have come together, where Ms. Latour and the MCIU partners have created a space where they can continue to learn and grow in their leadership efforts as we are working toward a fidelity with implementation of PBIS. And then, of course, on this topic, I have to make sure I give a shout out and a plug for an upcoming event related to the implementation of positive behavior interventions and support. And that's on April 10th. We'll have a PBIS family night. At that event, that's at 6 p.m. on April 10th, right there at Central Office. Representatives from each of our schools will be present and they'll share information and engage families in small group listening circles. The event is going to be designed to highlight what PBIS looks like at the elementary level, the middle school level, and the high school levels. And it'll be an opportunity for families to ask questions and engage in discussion. So we're looking forward to continuing with this momentum as we wrap up this school year and as we look ahead into next school year for our Tier 1 implementation of PBIS. Are there any questions on this goal?
So I might have misheard because I heard Tier 1 and Year 1, but it's Year 2, right? So it's Tier 1, but Year 2 of this.
This is the second year for this goal. But in terms of implementation, this is year 1 of implementation. So last year, which was the first year for this district goal, last year was the process that we underwent to go through the trainings. Our PBIS core teams were established, and each of those core teams were engaged in training modules all throughout last year. And we were building the infrastructure in each of the schools in order to soar into this school year with year one of installation. And so this is the second year for this goal, but this is the first year of full implementation for PBIS across all of the schools. Does that help to clarify?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's perfect. And then
Thanks for your question.
one other question, what's a fidelity walkthrough?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Fidelity walkthrough? Yeah.
That is correct. Yes, thank you for the question. So there are specific elements of the implementation or installation process when any district is embarking upon having PBIS in place. And with our MCIU partners, we are a part of the Pennsylvania Positive Behavior Support Network. And the MCIU leaders who help facilitate this process with us, they actually came on site and visited each of our schools and looked for evidence of PBIS implementation as it relates to the expectations that are taught to students across various settings in the school. They actually engaged in tapping random students. Of course, they were walking with a staff member because they were a guest in the buildings, but they engaged in asking students, what are the expectations in your schools? What does this look like in the cafeteria? What are the expectations in the playground, in the recess area? What are the rules? What are some of the rewards that you've received for those rules and acknowledgments for those rules and reinforcers? They also tapped into random staff members to ask questions. So there was a series of questions that they asked to just check and see how are we doing and what feedback could they give to each of the schools so that they can shore up our efforts, ensuring that we are implementing with fidelity. Thank you for the question. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Zeppi, just to kind of build on that, when they talk about fidelity of implementation, they tend to be talking about is the process being followed? Is the model being done faithfully? Which is important and it's good. I'm looking forward, though, in future years for us to, as a board, to be able to take a look at outcomes. So fidelity of implementation is important because the assumption is that if we do this model faithfully and we put all the pieces in place appropriately, it's a means to an end, right? And the end should be improved student outcomes. So, I mean, for me as a board member, I'm most interested in seeing what's the impact on student outcomes, assuming that we implement this with fidelity. Right. So in future years, I expect to and look forward to seeing more about the outcome measures that are being produced by PBIS in all the schools. Thanks.
Great. Any other questions or comments on that one? Moving on.
Okay. Goal number 3 is to obtain and examine updated long-term enrollment projections. And we did that with this one most recent updated set from our demographer. And as we discussed, first of all, the accuracy of those projections depends almost entirely on their ability to accurately project kindergarten, which is a tricky thing. Also depends on how they analyze each individual districts. In our case, we have 3 townships, or 1 borough, 2 townships, zoning and development futures. So whereas the reports that we just examined this year, and we have completed this, show one thing. What we did agree also is to next year in the fall, have our demographer do another update as usual with actuals from this year, plus engage the Montgomery County Planning Commission. They have a very small office that does this. They're very, very good at what they do. They're just completely overwhelmed. So we have to get in their queue probably 8 or even 12 months ahead of time, which we've done. So come fall, there'll be a second set of projections that we can use to kind of verify the demographers. Questions on that? Okay. And then the 4th goal is, in partnership with the WEA, craft a fair and reasonable successor WEA collective bargaining agreement, which, as we have noted and celebrated in this forum before, has been accomplished and is put to bed. Happy to say that. That's a big accomplishment, by the way. Goal number 5 is to cultivate a safe and inclusive school environment. And I will invite Dr. Dewan back to give us an update on that.
Yes, thank you. We, as a district, we remain committed to helping to foster belongingness, conflict resolution, and pro-social behaviors. And we're doing that in a variety of ways, one of which is through our efforts with the No Place for Hate program from the Anti-Defamation League, ADL. And so our school teams this year are, as it is the end of March, beginning of April is tomorrow, so they are working on finalizing their No Place for Hate projects they've engaged in throughout the year, various activities. The submission of these projects will help to ensure our continued designation for each of our schools as an ADL No Place for Hate designated school. So to support the work, Ms. Latour recently facilitated a virtual session with administrators and the No Place for Hate coordinators from the Anti-Defamation League. And during that session, they reviewed lessons and activities and got some feedback on their progress throughout this school year. Each of our schools have been engaging student leaders in a variety of ways across PBIS and in thinking about No Place for Hate. We saw an example this evening from Shady Grove in their work with PBIS student ambassadors. So student leadership is something that we often think about in our schools in helping to build that student agency. And so I want to highlight our high school student leaders who have been engaging in various opportunities in partnerships with local organizations to help strengthen inclusivity. 5 high school students attended for the third time this year, or rather, this is the third year. We had high school students attend a Dreaming Forward session hosted by the MCIU. They collaborated with peers across the county, and they focused on identifying ways to help foster belongingness, and they participated in leadership development activities as student leaders. We also had 9 students and staff members participate in ADL's Youth Leadership Conference. And there they explored the impact of student-led initiatives. They also focused on social media's influence as a part of that conference. And that led to the high school administrative team working with student leaders and staff to coordinate a special session for students recently on March 28th, where the focus was on belonging, unity, and digital well-being. So helping students to think about some of the impacts of social media on the social setting and social relationships with peers. And so that happened on March 28th. They had a special schedule in order for all of the students to have that experience. And then we had 9 additional students attended Delaware Valley Consortium Leadership Conference, and there they focused on developing strategies, again, with a focus on improving school climate. So those are some examples at the high school level of student leaders who have been participating in some training and then going back to the high school to turn around their learning with their peers and of course with staff. Our staff, again, we've talked about restorative practices in our last goal update. We continue to remain committed to restorative practices and social emotional learning. Educators across all the levels continue to be engaged in restorative practices training. So we have a cohort model, and our cohort model has continued this year to ensure that all of our staff are having the opportunity to have that training. And then each month, as you may know, there's a district theme. This month's March theme was self-awareness. And our students are supported in helping them to grow socially and emotionally with a variety of activities to reinforce those skills. All of these efforts are just a few to name to share this evening that help us in our continued dedication to building a safe, inclusive, and supportive school community. Are there any questions from the board?
So what are some of these projects that need to be completed to receive the designation as a No Place for Hate?
Yeah. For ADL's No Place for Hate, in order to have our schools to be designated, so there are a variety of activities that we would have our students engage in anyway, just to center how to mitigate some of the negative behaviors or negative interactions and how to lift up positive interactions, pro-social interactions between peers. But specifically the projects that our schools will engage in are ones that have students involved in the planning of activities that are turned around for student leadership to be a part of. So that's actually one of the things that ADL expects, that there's student engagement in sort of turning around lessons and activities. I can certainly get a list of the exact projects that are going to be submitted to ADL at the end of this school year. I'd be happy to do that. But any of the projects that are going to be submitted are going to be focused on how do we stop hateful comments, hateful interactions? How do we uplift and encourage positive interactions among peers? How do we, as bystanders, or we heard tonight, upstanders, how do we disrupt if we're a peer and we hear something or see something? How do we get help? How do we help to say, hey, that's not okay. We don't do that here. That's not a part of the WIS way. So activities tend to center around those types of expectations, but I'd be happy to get the board a specific list of the projects that are being submitted to ADL at the end of this year.
Yeah, I would really like to see that list. And so as far as it sounds like you have like a lot of student ambassadors at the high school that are participating in these activities. What about like the middle school? Do we have middle school students also really engaged in these learning activities and taking it back to their fellow classmates?
In terms of the collaboration with external organizations, for sure. I know that the Delaware Valley Consortium Leadership Conference did have a group of middle school students who were able to participate as well earlier in the year. I think that might have been a part of the earlier update, maybe not, but that would have been in the fall. Our middle school students were able to participate in a similar sort of leadership conference that focused on identifying strategies to help improve school climate, and then come back and turn that around with their school council and their administrative team and other teacher leaders who are working on these goals as well. Internally, though, even at the elementary level, there are student leaders. There's always in our schools, our principals are thoughtful about helping students to have leadership roles, because we know that it's a student voice, it's their perspective that's going to be most impactful to their peers, but also helping to design some of the activities that they're engaging in. So at each of the levels, as it relates to No Place for Hate, there are going to be student leaders who are involved, even if they did not participate in an external opportunity with a local organization like the MCIU or ADL's youth conference.
Yeah, I would love to see if we can compile some sort of list of some of the student-led initiatives, because I think it's great to get their perspective on interactions with their peers and see what solutions they think exist for these types of problems with students and the interactions they have. So I would love if we could put together a list of like what sort of ideas our students have to resolve these issues.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I don't have a comment on the goals, but I did want to speak of the Frisbee. When my children came into the high school, I had heard about Ultimate Frisbee and how big it is. I thought it was comical, and I couldn't understand the rave about this. My son in his senior year decided to join the Ultimate Frisbee team, and I must say I'm floored by the team, by like what's involved. But one of the things that blew me away was it's a non-contact, self-officiated sport. It's self-officiated. And I saw it in action. I went to a game, and like they would call each other out, like themselves, like, oh man, my bad, I did that wrong. Like I shouldn't have done, like they call penalties on themselves. Not penalties, but like turnovers or whatever the right term is. It is really, really tremendous. And my understanding is we have 2 alum who went off to play Ultimate Frisbee for their colleges and are nationally ranked like in the top 5-10% of Frisbee players. So I like, who knew, but it is actually quite a cool sport, and they have quite a few games coming up. I suggest you go watch a couple. They're fun to watch.
I agree. It's actually an incredibly strenuous sport when played right, and it does remind me a good bit of robotics, frankly, in that there is a tiny bit of cooperative. I mean, you want to win, just like you want to do in robotics. Robotics might have an exceedingly impressive amount of cooperating with your foes and partnering up. But same as to your point about the self officiating in Ultimate, it's a really cool feature of that too. So Thank you for calling.
Any other comments or questions?
I just had a quick question. This is totally a non sequitur, but I know that we have 2 built-in snow days and I'm seeing like end of year activities and stuff, calendar stuff, and I think we haven't taken a day away yet. Are we doing that soon?
It's still March, Dr. Moore. There could be all sorts of weather opportunities. Why are you jinxing things?
April 1st.
It is not April 1st. It is March and we are not going to jinx anything right now.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Just like for this is for parents, I just think it's useful to know sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just putting that on people's radar maybe. Okay.
Any other questions? All right, then we'll move on to our assistant superintendent report. Dr. Juan?
Thank you. I don't have any informational items or action items this evening.
Thank you. A board solicitor report.
Likewise.
Then we'll move on to our board secretary report. Tim?
I do have some for this month. I have 6 committee meeting minutes. The Finance Committee minutes from February 10th and March 10th. The Policy Committee and the REOC Committee minutes from February 18th meetings, and the work session from February 24th and regular meeting on March 3rd.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions? All right, board treasurer report. Tim?
Sure, this month we have the February's Treasurer's Report for your approval.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? All right, we'll move on to HR.
Good evening. For your review tonight are 3 items under section 13 of the Human Resources Report. The first 2 action items include resignations, retirements, appointments, changes of status, leaves of absence, extracurricular changes, and volunteers. And item 13.3 is for the approval of an increase to our custodial substitute rates. This concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions?
Danielle, is that 13.3 just to keep up with competing jobs or districts that?
Yeah, the director of buildings and grounds did a study and asked other districts what they were paying. We were low. And we haven't raised the rate since I've been here, so. And we need some subs. So.
I don't have a question. It's just a comment. When I saw Abigail Test on the retiree list, I let my boys know that she was retiring at the end of the school year. She was one of their all-time favorite teachers at the middle school, and they both were saddened by the news. One of my boys said, "Rest in power, Mrs. Test." I said, "She's just retiring. She's not dead, thankfully." But anyway, she was a fantastic teacher, and she will be missed, I'm sure.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you. Communications Committee, Zeppi.
We did have a meeting right before this meeting where we talked about some upcoming communications that we're working through predominantly for updating the community on our budget. And so there's some working documents that we'll be working through for the next couple of weeks so that we can share out to our community when they're ready, as well as some other miscellaneous items, most notably what Deanne mentioned, all the end of year activities that are coming. And hopefully everybody will be able to join when they see those communications. Nothing really more than that.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? I do appreciate the list of all the activities. That's great.
It's helpful because like we need to plan.
Exactly. So many of them. So thank you for putting that together.
One more. Sorry, just a reminder that the phone app for the district also has a great calendar.
Thank you.
And I love that one, but not everybody gets on it.
All right, well, thank you so much. Any other comments or questions? All right, then we'll move on to curriculum and technology. Anne?
All right, we have 3 items for review. 15.1 is the 30-day public review period for recommended additions to the board approved list of plan courses and instructional resources. So it looks like it's math, business education at the high school, and family consumer science at the high school level. And Dr. Dewan, you can jump in if that is incorrect or incomplete. Next, 15.2 is approval of 2025 summer programs, and 15.3 is the approval for money for, I think, outsourced psychiatric evaluation services to the district.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions? Dr. Dewan, I was excited to see that we're going to be moving on to new math materials.
Same.
Next year. So that seems like a great new addition. Did you have an opportunity, Dr. Dewan, to review those materials, and what were your thoughts on them?
Yes, they're excellent. We're excited about the shift. And as you may recall, our curriculum review process includes an opportunity for input from families. So families would have gotten a survey earlier in the year, or probably even last year. And this year, then the team has been engaged with Dr. Schmidt and the Department of Teaching and Learning, where they were reviewing resources and vetting resources with various criteria for them to analyze and identify. And then they selected two, and then had a pilot this year. And then we're able to get input from students and staff who were experiencing those piloted materials. So our process is a comprehensive one here. We're excited about the shifts and looking forward to the professional learning opportunities that are going to accompany the shift in resources in math. It's not just about the resources, it's also about the teaching. So there's going to be also information available for families. We're thinking about family engagement opportunities for the fall so that families can learn more about what these shifts look like, and not just the resources, but also the instruction. So you'll see this. Oh, I apologize.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just saying it's wonderful.
It is very exciting, and the board will see this. It's an informational item this evening, as Dr. Morris explained. You'll see this again on the public board workshop meeting agenda for April 28th, because we'll be seeking approval at the public board meeting on May 5th. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, then we'll move on to facilities and transportation. Jim.
Thank you. For tonight, we have several change orders to consider. The first two, 16.1 and 16.2, are both change orders associated with the Bluebell Elementary project. And then 16.3 is a change order, one increase in purchase order related to the Wissahickon Stadium bleacher placement project. I had asked Tim to just provide some additional context for these change orders, and 16.1 and 16.2 in total combined are about $70,000-ish in total, which might seem like a fairly large amount, but it actually represents less than 0.3% of the overall project at Bluebell. So it is a sizable change order on its own, but in context with the overall construction, it's pretty small. And then, likewise, the increase of the purchase order for the stadium project, $7,500. In this case, also represents a very small fractional amount, less than 0.2% of the overall project as well. And Tim, if you want to give any other details about any of those change orders, feel free.
Where the first one is when they took the walls down, there was stuff you don't see behind the walls that needed to be addressed. And the other one was for the lighting in the bus yard. And the additional engineering was required by the township that goes along with the additional items that we chose to go forward with.
Thanks. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Finance Committee, Steve?
Yeah, I should have noted earlier when you mentioned upcoming meetings, I don't think we have the budget workshop tomorrow night on the upcoming meeting list. Just reminding folks that will be our third budget workshop. This year is a very challenging year. We have had to look, given some of the issues facing the district, some budget cuts that we will need to be able to look at tomorrow night. At the same time, I'm sure that everyone has seen what's happening nationally regarding the Department of Education and other items there. So depending on how that works out, we may have further challenges facing the district. So just making sure that folks are aware of that. For next week's meeting, we have a total of 12 items. The first two, 17.1 and 17.2, are approval of the regular finance reports and payments. 17.3 through 17.6 are approval of settlements where folks, mostly businesses, and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, have come back and asked for a reassessment of their tax rate. So again, in the budget perspective, that's taking money away from the district. 17.7 and 17.8 are both around just purchasing bids for structural supplies. 17.9 is a retainer for our legal services. 17.10 is acceptance of a donation from the Shady Grove School Association. 17.11 is a proposal to accept the North Montco Technical Career Center operating budget for this year. And then lastly, we'll look at 17.12 to just waiving the fees that we would normally charge for use of facilities for both the 4th of July Carnival and the Richie Ashburn Free Camp during the summer.
Great, thank you for that report. Any comments or questions? I would just note that the budget workshops are open to the public, so anyone is welcome to come and hear the process as we develop the budget going into next year. And as Steve mentioned, our next one is tomorrow evening at 5:30. So if anyone would like to join, it's right here in the boardroom. And I also wanted to just comment on the donation from the Home and School Association. I think it's wonderful. We have such amazing home and school associations here in Wissahickon, and they do such a tremendous job of raising funds. And this is great that they're going to be making this donation of flexible seating for our students. So thank you to the Stony Creek Home and School Association. All right, moving on next. So any other comments or questions?
I just have a quick question / comment. I mean, to be clear, it's not the board that decides about the property reassessment. That all goes through you, right, Jeff?
That property reassessment.
Yes, what about?
Oh, it goes through you, right? We're not deciding, it's already been decided by the board, correct?
Property assessment determinations are made initially by the County Board of Assessment. And we can participate before the County Board of Assessment in determining whether or not we want to challenge what they determine is the ultimate value of the property. I don't know if that's the nature of your question or not. We don't independently determine the property values. We decide to challenge them and provide evidence whether or not we believe it's in accordance with the market value. So when we resolve those cases based upon some of the stipulations you see or settlement agreements, they are based upon our valuation of the property versus the county's evaluation of the property versus the property owners, and they get resolved under those circumstances. Or ultimately, the courts will resolve the property assessment differential.
Okay, yeah, that answers it. I just wanted to like make clear that the board had no like hand in making any property assessment decisions, essentially.
We don't make the decisions. We advocate the position and from our respect.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to Policy Committee. Marshall?
Yes, thank you. We have for consideration some reviews from our Policy Committee meeting on February 18th, and I'll be seeking approval of the first reading of those revisions. Those are all PSBA recommended revisions, so they were all discussed in that regard. They have to do with areas of pregnant or married students within the district and the rules that pertain to them. It had to do with issues regarding hazing. It had to do with issues of quote unquote bullying and cyberbullying and how the use of AI can now be involved in that particular rule and responsibility. We talked about educator misconduct, standard purchasing procedures, reverse assessment appeals, maintaining professional adult-student boundaries, use of computers and network resources, again pertaining to use of AI. And then there were a couple regarding student records and how student records and supplemental records are dealt with. And then finally, comment during public board meetings. Again, these were all recommendations for revision by PSBA. So next week, I will be seeking approval of the first reading of those revisions, which will be 18.1 through 18.1.
Great, thank you, Marshall. Did anyone have any comments or questions on those policies?
Just one comment. Marshall, in some previous years, we used to get like a document that would give just a brief summary of the nature or rationale for the changes of each policy. And we don't have it this cycle. Is that something that we can have in the future?
We did, I believe we did have the summary. Didn't we have a summary at the meeting? Yeah, and we did have the summaries. I guess they just weren't attached to the agenda, but see any reason why they couldn't be attached as they typically are.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful just to provide some context. I mean, if you look at the documents, you can see what's redlined, but then it doesn't provide any context of like why the change. In some cases, in many cases, maybe in this scenario, they were just simply changes directly recommended by PSBA. But sometimes they're hard to discern.
Not a problem. And I also invite everyone, if they are a public meeting, more than welcome to show up and engage not only in discussing it, but commenting as well. I don't have the next meeting in front of me. Do we have it scheduled yet? Not yet. It'll be scheduled.
All right, thank you so much, Marshall. Any other comments? All right, then we'll move on to health, wellness, and safety. REAC, I'm sorry. Scroll down too far. Yeah, you can provide the REAC.
I can provide a quick recap. So on March 17th, REAC had one of its 2 annual listening sessions. This session occurred at the community room in Penland Woods, and it was designed to be a session to invite members of the community to come sit with board members and some administrators and just have a conversation about their personal experiences on some of the topics that are within the scope of REAC. And we had a pretty active group that was there with us. We had 3 different listening circles that we're arranged in, and had, I think, a pretty engaging discussion. And again, I think the most important thing for me as a board member is to hear directly from parents, students, and other members of our community dealing with some of these issues based on their experience in our West Haven community. So I know Paul, I think, is online. Jean also was there as well. Olivia, I think you were there too. Is that right? I mean, it's not Isabel, were you there as well?
I was there, yeah.
Yeah, she were in a different listening session, but I've never seen. So feel free to, anyone can comment if they want about the evening.
I'll just chime in real quickly, Joe. I think that was a great recap. I just do want to kind of echo Joe's point of the role that the student reps played in the session. All the students who attended and participated were fantastic. They voiced their truths based on their experiences in Wissahickon, and it was invaluable to the group discussion. And I just want to commend them and thank everyone who came out to participate.
Jean or Isabel?
I think the listening session was really productive. And yeah, I was with one of my friends in the circle, so we took notes of everything. And yeah, I think that's a really important step to then, you have that written down so that you can take effective action steps towards, the solutions. Because we did brainstorm like a whole bunch of like possibilities. And, the more possibilities you have, you can see like which ones are the most effective in like which cases. So we're excited, honestly, to implement them as soon as possible in the District Equity Planning Committee meetings. Thank you.
Yeah, just one quick. The students were incredible with their, what they were talking about, discussing with, at the end of each, session. They were phenomenal. They did a really good job. And,
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, then we will move on now to health, wellness, and safety, Jean.
yes, there are no informational items or action items at this time.
Thank you. I will move on to board representative reports. Marshall?
Thank you. There was a third marking period extracurricular committee meeting on the 27th. It was brief as there was only one proposal for a new group. It is entitled WHS Town Hall. The purpose of the club is to gather leaders and students from various organizations, whether it's affinity groups, student council, or other groups within the high school, to share opportunities and ideas. This was approved as an IE, and the purpose is to promote any kind of changes, issues, or concerns on behalf of the student body. So for instance, if we want to focus on incoming freshmen and things that they may expect at the high school level, or when students are preparing for the PSATs, different things like that, where different members of already existing organizations come together and in a town hall type setting to discuss the needs, interests, and concerns of the student body. So again, that was approved in that regard. There's no cost for that. And then again, also in the hopper is the idea of, well, not the idea, but the flag football club, which is being moved next year to a PIAA sport. And we are getting ready to put that proposal together as I believe 19 of the 24 school districts in PIAA have a flag football program and be joining them. So that's coming up as well. Wrap up for the extra.
Marshall, the flag football team, that's for girls, right? Women?
Traditionally it is.
Yep, okay, thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Yeah,
Yeah, I just want to speak on WHS Town Hall. That was an idea that was created by many students. Mr. Brooks, shout out to him. He basically piecemealed like all of these student voices and leaders, the various students that were mentioned in the student leadership opportunities and trips for PBIS and all those, and a group called the Dreamers, which are freshmen. And then student leaders at the district equity planning committee meetings, he basically gathered all of their voices and he's like, okay, well, if you are basically advocating the same thing, you want change, you want to have a group of students gathered to talk about certain issues, like why can't we just make this more tangible? So he gathered us all and we were all, like you can say, like founding members, and it's really a neat opportunity because it's really interesting how you have students in different types of groups and they all have like the same idea in mind, and this is like much more of a unified path to achieve that. So that was really cool.
Yeah. And would this town hall then lead into the student council? How do ideas filter up?
Yeah, so we're gonna have student note takers every meeting, so we can make sure, like, if we're talking about an issue that we, the students, see, we can then take this to student council, or we can also talk about Dr. Blair, because I meet with her, with other student board nominees every Friday. But if it's more so a student-related activity, like preparing for PSATs, as previously mentioned, we will still have those note takers, but it's more so going to be relayed to the students themselves, like via the morning news or like a newsletter or something like that, or like the Schoology recent updates and all that. So yeah, pretty much.
Steve, just as a point of clarification as well, the point is also to have 1 to 2 members of each group or club available and participating, so that there's a sort of a whole group camaraderie there and everybody's involved.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Any other comments or questions? All right, then we'll move on to the MCIU report. So we did have a meeting. I'll just highlight some of the legislative issues. Actually, before I do that, I did want to comment. So you know how our comprehensive plan is big, it's long. They put theirs into a 1-page flyer to kind of summarize it for their community, which I thought was really great. And I'll share that out with everybody, but just like hits on their mission, their vision, their values, things they're focusing on. And this will be their comprehensive plan 25 through 28. So I thought that was like just a really neat idea to kind of really make it concise for their stakeholders. And then as far as like legislative issues, March 20th was when President Trump signed an executive order directing the Secretary of Education to dismantle the Education Department. So that was brought up. There's also a couple bills. Senate Bill 27 would amend the public school code in charter schools, providing for cyber charter school moratorium. It would prohibit the department from reviewing or acting on any application for the establishment of a new cyber charter school, regardless of the date of when the application was, or when it was, I guess, submitted or received by the department, beginning July 1st and continuing through June 30th of 2038. There was another Senate Bill 394, and that is providing an expiration of authority of school districts to levy and collect real property tax on homesteads and farmsteads after June 30th. The legislator shall, by general law, provide annually each school district maintenance and support an amount at least equal to the real property tax collected by the school district on homesteads and farmsteads during the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2030, less any annual debt service legally obligated to be paid. So that was an interesting one. And then another Senate bill determines the amount charter schools shall receive for each student enrolled, which shall be paid to the district of residence of the student for the 25-26 school year and each school year thereafter for special education students. And it requires the charter school to document the cost of providing an education to the student and provide the documentation to the department and the school district of residence, and prohibits payments that exceed that maximum amount. So that was another interesting one. And then House Bill 998 exempts operator of 11 to 15 passenger vans from needing to get CDL. So I guess that's to address the bus driver shortage. High schools in House Bill 893 are going to be required to hire at least one credentialed transition coordinator for high school. House Bill 906 requires public school entities to provide notice via first-class mail financial information posted for the public school entity to each resident taxpayer, beginning with the financial information posted on the department's website pertaining to the 24-25 school year. So that's just a couple of them. There's a lot of them listed here, but that was just a few that I saw and thought were interesting. We have another legislative committee meeting now that's coming, where I guess we'll address these further. But any comments, questions? No. All right, then moving on to North Monco.
So to begin with, the annual car show coming May 3rd. Just great fundraiser for North Monco. We were very happy to hear at the meeting on the 17th that the applications North Monco to ninth graders in the second school district, their application numbers much higher than they asked, which is fantastic.
I'm on the subcommittee for the capacity committee, and we're working through looking at various data to see what can be done from a capacity perspective. So although WIS doesn't have a whole lot of kids sending over to North Monco, other schools have much larger POPs and a very large wait lists. In fact, we have several wait lists because some of the programs are so competitive or small that they can't contain the kids. So we're looking at things like the building footprints, creative ways to kind of like do the programs in different ways. So it's a really interesting out of the box kind of assessment of what can be done to help with enrollment. So the goal is by the end of the year to come up with one or two kind of ideas that could be brought forward. I think The rest was all like kind of regular business items that we cover every month.
Any comments or questions? All right, well, thank you. PSBA?
So May 13th is Spring Advocacy Day. I don't think I'm gonna entertain going this year because I've been trying to meet with our representatives here locally. Most recently met with Representative Hanbidge, who isn't my rep, but is a rep in Wissahickon, for Wissahickon families. And one of the things she really, drove home to me was the importance of advocacy from all of our community members at a federal level. We are facing, possible crisis in public education if we lose funding. And, some districts are going to be affected more than others, but, I think every student in Pennsylvania and the country matters. So we have to be vocal. We should be calling, calls are the most effective way to, sway our federal representatives because they take like logs of what subject is called on each day. I don't think emails are taken quite as seriously. So calling Representative Fetterman, Senator Fetterman, Senator McCormick, and then I think most of our federal representative is Madeline Dean, I think most of us here. So calling those three people, asking for more federal funding to the states, because I also learned that a lot of our state money to school districts comes through the federal government. So if that goes away, a lot of our state funding goes away too. This would be very bad for public education. And so I think all of us, anyone listening, anyone who has a child or grandchild in public education, or even if you don't, your community still relies on public education as a foundation of democracy, I think. So we need to advocate for this at the highest level. And I just wanted to pass that along because I also believe in this. And it's just really upsetting as to what could be coming if we don't voice our opinion and try to make a change.
Thank you, Deanna. Thanks for taking the time to meet with our representatives to discuss these important issues. Any other comments or questions? All right, ERC?
Got nothing at this time.
Thank you. All right, then we'll move on to our second public comment period. The board appreciates hearing from the community. A maximum of 5 speakers will be heard on the same topic. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes in the interest of fairness and in order to treat all speakers equally. It's not a practice to engage in dialogue with speakers. When appropriate, we'll follow responses on board docs. Whether you're in person or virtually, please state your name and affiliation to the district when speaking. We have one person registered in person, and that's Carmina Taylor.
So I had came prepared to say something else. I did not see that policy 903 was on the agenda today because when I went to scroll down, I didn't see everything. Before Marshall explained that this was the PSBA recommendations, I was absolutely just abashed because Mr. Sal Tannick knows that in 2021, the Sodderton School District changed policy 903 to refrain from me speaking in their public comments. So in the policy, if you can look at it when you do for the second reading or next week, there's a section where it says the board requires public participants providing public comments be current residents or taxpayers of the district. What's slashed out that occurs right now is anyone representing a group in the community or school district. So Mr. Saltanic single-handedly influenced the school board in Sodderton to change that so I couldn't advocate for families that came out to me. So prior to that, I thought it was really interesting that you guys decided to take that out. But in May 23, you kept it in when you had the last revision, and I asked why, and you said because you valued people's discussion. On the heels of what Deanne just said, how can you ask people to advocate to make sure you guys have federal funding, but you don't let people outside of a resident or taxpayer to come and advocate for people here in this school community? It is outrageous. But this language of having a previous graduate of Wissahickon High School speak is new. So I'd like to know behind that. It's just outrageous that anybody in 2025 would limit people. Parents are not coming up and speaking out because they are afraid. I want to talk to Steve's comment about the budget hearing. I want to know why it wasn't on the calendar and advertised because the public needed to know that. I also wanted to say in terms of the recap of the Race and Equity Committee, I'm sure Dr. Crestfield was there when one child said that Black students are treated differently than white students. So when you recap that meeting, you did not capture what was really said. That alone speaks volumes. That baby doesn't talk outside of a school environment. But the student that said Black students are treated differently than white students. That alone should challenge everyone to think about what was the root of what she was saying. Just outrageous. I will be back next week. I will be bringing alumni with me, community members, to go against your decision because school districts have the discretion, even though these are PSBA recommendations. Each school district has the discretion to change the language of any policy. And what you should say is that PSBA is a membership-based organization and it's not something that is a public organization. So you pay to be a part of that. And so their recommendations are not SoundCloud and every school district has an option to change. Black students are treated differently than white students.
Thank you for your comments, Carmina. Is there anyone registered online?
There are no hands raised online.
All right, then we'll close public comment and we'll move on to board comments. Any board member comments? The only question I would have, Jim, I know it didn't make it to the agenda, but the meeting tomorrow evening was advertised, correct? Okay. I think it was just, it had a time change.
The reason it didn't was it was initially going to be tonight. We had to re-advertise it for tomorrow. Wouldn't have been made sense to have it an upcoming meeting on this agenda since it's prior.
And we had communication. Okay, any other board comment? All right, then we'll, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Or adjourn?